This is Garrett Hart for Rock and Recovery, and with me is John Stuckey. He's the co-founder of Archway Institute in St. Louis. John, good morning and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is another successful event.
Nice. Well, let's talk about Archway Institute and how it came into being.
So the Archway Institute started around 6 years ago. So through my journey, basically I found recovery, and through that process, transitional living, being involved in treatment, things like that, I realized how blessed I was to have a support network and people and resources. And what I came to the realization through that path of seeing people struggling out there and passing away and all the issues that come with substance abuse, my family and I decided that we wanted to try to give back and help others. So we started the nonprofit, the Archway Institute, to really try to connect resources and knock down barriers for people that are seeking treatment. Really try to offer people hope that there is paths to recover, and so giving them options and resources.
And in your journey, your personal journey into recovery and your family's involvement with the resources, understanding that the opioid epidemic and its related tragedy touches not just the lives of the individual, but families, friends. It's disruptive for the whole community. How did that drive you to look for resources and other people in recovery to help in future interventions?
Substance abuse has a rippling effect through the families, and typically families take the brute end of addiction. I mean, it's addiction is very narcissistic. So when you're out there using, it's you feel like you're only hurting yourself, and you're not really affecting other people. And why do they care? Why are they bothered by this? Because I don't think they come to the realization, they just think they're doing this for themselves. It's self-medication. They're doing it to survive for the most part. And so I don't know if they come to the realization that the rippling effect, but it does. When we work with people and individuals, it's not just the individual we're working with, it's the whole family and support network, because they're all affected in some way, shape, or form.
And in that involvement now, the fact is that with so many people in overdose situations and presenting at emergency rooms, it's called for a fresh approach for how to intervene in people's lives. Talk about the projects that you have been developing with your fellows to help people and reach out immediately upon presenting with an overdose at emergency rooms.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool projects going on right now. There's a lot of money being pumped into the opiate issue just because literally everyone is being affected by this. The workforce, the families, the individuals, and really it's changing how people treat and view mental health and substance abuse, which is really cool. And one of the projects that we're involved with out in St. Louis is it's called the EPIC, or it's the STR grant, the State Treatment Response to the Opiate Epidemic. And the EPIC project is peers, people in recovery, and basically if somebody goes into an ER or a hospital for an overdose and they are willing to get help, one of our recovery coaches will go up there, meet with the individual, and really cut the red tape, because one of the issues is access to treatment. And so the wait list, insurance, things like that. And so the project really cuts all the red tape for people that are trying to seek help or need help, and it gives them access to counseling, resources, access to stable housing, medications, things of that sort.
Well, let's talk about the housing right away, because there's where that provides a real alternative to a clinical detox setting where they can go into a housing arrangement that is supervised, and that it's something that you're directly involved with. Talk about how that has had an impact on helping people get treatment.
Yeah, so one of the biggest issues is access to beds. So, you know, hospitals, treatment centers, the wait list for beds in those settings are you know, long. And so one of the other options that has come available is we run sober living homes, and it's kind of on a two-tier level as far as, you know, a higher level and then a lower level of housing. And so basically what ends up happening is it's more done like in an outpatient setting, and so just on a restricted level. And so whenever someone is coming in, they basically are stabilized on medications, put into our level 1 housing, and basically they're surrounded by peer support and meetings and access to treatment, and while they're being monitored and going to day treatment. So it's really kind of allowing a lot more people to receive help in a more timely fashion, because that window of opportunity to kind of really seize on somebody when they're struggling is very small. Just like when they have that willingness to make a change, it's like we need to get in and do something. And so really the model has allowed a lot more people to have access to that type of stable situation and resources, and to, you know, give them the best chances to have success.
And this program that you're involved with is directed by, or it's overseen, it's approved by the state health departments or recovery groups?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of work with the state right now, and so we work with DMH, Department of Mental Health. We work with a lot of the federal organizations, and on a national level, like the NAR accreditation for housing. So really trying to implement standards and teaming up with everybody. I mean, we got state involvement, we got private programs involvement, we got the recovery community's involvement, and so, you know, this is this problem is affecting everybody, and in that matter, we need everybody's help to combat this thing. And so it's really just it's been a really cool thing, especially over the last 6 years. You know, I've seen a huge transformation from the community's involvement, from organizational involvement, and private companies' involvement, just because of the effects that it has had on everybody. And with the drugs that are out there right now, it's you know, this is a life or death matter, you know, and people are, you make one mistake and they could be dead, and it's a real thing, and you know, it needs everybody's help to resolve it.
And once people are in treatment and are really, their lives are making a change, what happens as your interactions continue with these folks for their lives to provide them with that change of people, places, things? So they're now part of a new tribe, maybe a tribe that no one really wanted to belong to, but they're in a group of people that are in recovery. How do you keep them nurtured and focused on sobriety and keeping that clean and sober life?
Well, I mean, I think it's, you know, you have to provide them with a better quality of life than the one they were living. And so it's a combination of things. I think whenever you, you know, get really far into the substance abuse aspect of it, it's like you lose hope, you lose your support network, you lose your housing, you lose financial assistance, you lose all the things that give you comfort and safety and stability. And so, you know, mental health and substance abuse, even though there is the actual disease of addiction, it's the surrounding parts, the symptoms of the disease is, you know, criminal rap sheet, so they have a hard time getting employment, getting state aid for access to food, housing, all that. And so really it's about connecting them with resources to give them a clear path of hope to a quality of life that they can sustain and maintain, because it's not just it is treatment of the disease, but then it's also building a sustainable lifestyle for them. So it's really about connecting them with resources that can help them sustain the path that they're going down. And when you say changing people, places, and things, you know, I think that's why transitional living has become such a huge tool, because ultimately, here you go, you know, here's a new environment, here's new people, and inevitably you're going to find new things to do with those people, doing positive things in the community, finding employment, career paths, you know, redeveloping relationships with family. And you know, it's just that you know, we conform to our environment. So whatever environment that we're providing them needs to be the environment that we want them, you know, to provide them with the best chances to be successful.
And your involvement, there are 9 home housing situations that you supervise, am I correct? Well, let's talk a little bit about what are the challenges and the rewards of, this is a large task. I mean, there are numbers of people that are in need of services and are in need of care. The fact that you're providing this as a resource to folks has its own set of challenges and also rewards. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's probably, you know, one of the coolest things to be a part of is the housing. You know, it is, you know, I talk to a lot of people that are, you know, attempt to open up houses or put together programs like that, and I just let them know, you know, housing will take over your life, you know, but at the same time it can be a very stressful, it can be a very overwhelming type of thing, but it will also be one of the most rewarding things that you will ever do is being of service to somebody and providing that type of environment, and you know, the outcomes and the results are what make it all worth it. And it is, you know, when you see that click and when you see, you know, a father who has kids that, you know, has not had access to them and has not been able to provide for their family, or has not had good relationships with their wife or with their parents, or, you know, hasn't been able to get a job, and all of a sudden you see that little glimmer of hope in them, and you know, you see that spark, and so it's just like, and once you see that fire going, it's a beautiful thing to see happen. And really the other cool thing about it is that community setting. You know, we are you know, housing about 115 guys, and there's no paid staff, you know, and all our guys that volunteer, vacation, they get jobs in the field, and through all that, it is, you know, there's always been a disconnect between treatment and the recovery community. And even with housing has been disconnected from both the recovery community and treatment. And so the really cool thing that I've seen happen is all of those pieces starting to come together, and everyone getting on the same page as far as that we need to work together to solve this. But up until a couple years ago, I mean, there was a big disconnect, and seeing all those pieces of the puzzle come together, you actually are starting to see some outcomes that you know, are really going to be beneficial for the long term.
Right, and as an individual success story, that individual has an effect on their loved ones, on their family members, and on their community. And the hope really springs from that experience. Talk a little bit about what changes you see in the community in general that is responding to this intervention style and this sort of treatment model.
Well, I think it's all about outcomes. You know, Percy Menzies, who has kind of been a mentor for me through this process, you know, he always says, you know, the only way you change stigma is to produce better results. And, you know, and until we produce better results, the stigma will stay the same. And so really a lot of what and everything, you know, we do is to try to produce the best success rates as possible, because ultimately we need to break down that stigma and show people that people can and do get better. And one of the things, you know, I've found through this journey and getting out of my comfort zone or whatever, and networking with other people and being a part of so many other people's paths to recovery, is one of the things you'll find out is addicts are the most skilled and talented people you will ever meet, you know. And when you see when they use their skills and abilities to their success instead of their demise, it is, they will be one of the most influential, powerful, helpful people in the community, in the workforce, and in the family tree. So it is not only in their best interest, but it's in everyone's best interest to get these individuals the help that's needed and get them on the right path and show them that there is hope and success here and sustainability, because they will improve all aspects of our lives if we help them.
Gotcha. You mentioned Percy Menzies. Let's talk a bit about him, what his role in your life has been in your recovery.
So one of the things when I was going through my journey, you know, like I said, there was a huge disconnect between the recovery community, the housing community, and the treatment community. And as my parents will talk about, you know, no one was ever actually quarterbacking or calling the plays all the way through. It was you either go here for detox, then when you get out, we're done with you, go over here for outpatient, then we're done with you, go here for housing, go there for AA, or whatever recovery community you're joining. And it wasn't all pieced together, and so there was a lot of room for error. And as I always said, you know, why Vivitrol was so effective for me was because ultimately it closed all the doors. And one of the things, subconsciously or consciously, what I was doing was I was always leaving doors cracked. And so one of the things that happened was the medication really helped me close the door of opportunity, because this is a disease of opportunity. And so the opportunity was alleviated, but then I needed somebody to kind of help guide me through that process. And so that was quarterbacking basically, and calling plays for, you know, what we're going to do here, what we're going to do there, and advocacy along that way. So looking at big picture stuff, and regardless of whatever I was doing, they were kind of guiding me and my family and kind of helping us out. And you know, that was something that really helped out, because there's struggles in this process, you know. And you talk about, you know, addiction. You know, I say I'm an addict, you know, well, I suffer from the chronic disease of relapses. So to believe that relapses are not going to happen, and that, you know, this is not a long-term thing that I'm going to be dealing with, is unreliable, and basically it's an expectation that's unrealistic. And so, you know, having people around you for the long term that really know how to intervene in those situations, because I mean, when I look at it and all the people that I've dealt with, it's you know, there's only really 3 reasons why people, you know, seek treatment, and that's either they're running out of opportunities, 2, they've hit some sort of rock bottom, and 3 is the intervention. And so really you're looking for the interventions of people around you that can kind of step in and say, what's going on, what do we need to do, let's go here, let's work on some resources, let's connect you with, you know, getting you back into treatment or whatever the situation may be, and just kind of guiding that path.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to finish to talk a bit about your parents, your mom and dad, and their commitment to you. You know, one of the issues about being a parent and watching a child, your kids, dealing with some really difficult stuff, that when they decided they were gonna hang in and do what they needed to do to help you, to keep you alive, but also to give you a good quality of life again. Talk a bit about what their journey was for you, as you could see it coming out of your narcissistic phase of your addiction and realizing what kind of support you had.
So like one of the biggest impacts that I've had in this process was, so I started going to what we call, it's called HOPE out in St. Louis, but it's Hope for Opiate Addicts Parents Exist. And one of the things that really happened there was, you know, you get so involved in the layers and emotional ties to family that you, and the narcissistic behavior, that, you know, you don't always connect what actually you have done from an emotional standpoint, and the stress that you cause your loved ones. And then ultimately, like, you go into these type of family support groups and you see other families that are struggling with this thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, what have I done, you know? And then all of a sudden you become very grateful and appreciative, and you see that they've had, you know, a tough journey also. And that's why, you know, through this path and all the things that we do, And even with the houses, it's, even though we are servicing the individual, ultimately I always am attempting to fold in the family, just because I know that whoever we're dealing with, there is a group around them that are really struggling, and and you know, it's just it's a process, and people need to have support, and for the longest time this has been the issue in your basement, or you know, it's the issue you don't talk about, and you know, the stigma that's associated with it. Nobody wants to admit to it, and so not only is the addict suffering in silence, but all the people that they have roped into their web of support is also suffering in silence. And so giving them outlets to be able to, you know, communicate, find support, talk about the issues that they're dealing with, it is critical, because ultimately, you know, the family is the front lines of addiction. And so not only do we need to show them support, but we also need to arm them with the resources, you know, that are out there, because when you get that phone call that your kid has overdosed, or there's issues going on, you very quickly end up in a crisis situation. What do I do? Where do I go? Which affects all aspects of their lives also. And so it is about not only connecting resources for the individual, but for the community to have those resources, because they're the ones doing the interventions. The workforce is the one that's doing the interventions, the police departments are the ones doing the interventions, the family is the ones doing the interventions, and so it is in everyone's best interest for these resources to be opened up to all, you know, and to admit that we all have a problem, you know. I mean, we do a lot of work with you know, the labor force, and the labor force has lost so many people, and they don't know what to do. You know, there's tons of jobs, but people can't, they don't know what to do, because they've lost like 30–40% of the workforce, because people can't pass drug screens, and the struggles that are out there. And so it is critical that we all start getting on the same page as far as what we're going to do and what resources are out there, because I guarantee you, if you look in your community, there are treatment providers, there are hospitals, or there are, you know, grassroots movements like the ARCHway Institute that are out there that are doing this work. But you know, it's always it's like an underworld, you know, and so we need to take it from the underworld and put it into the mainstream, so that everyone has access to what these resources are. And that's one of the things we found through this journey was it's out there, but it's hard to find, and you only get tapped in, you know, once you get on the other side of this. And so when you're on the flip side, and the struggles part of this, because you're so naive to the issue at hand, and try to pretend that it's not going on, or you don't want to admit that it's going on, you don't get connected to these resources. So we just need to make it a more public issue.
And for individuals right now who are a loved one or a family member that is watching someone that they care for deeply, who's struggling and having difficult times, and has really entered into a dangerous spiral, how can they reach ARCHway Institute? How can they get help from you and from your peers to help them find a better way for their lives?
Yeah, so what we try to do is we go into communities, we try to pull up what resources are in those communities that we go to, and we try to just kind of be like an umbrella of resources that we can kind of coordinate or quarterback or connect people to what options are available to them in their immediate area, or try to connect them with resources that are available in other areas if they're not in where they're living. And so a lot of individuals will come out to our events that we do in the community, show support, connect with us, or get roped in. And then also we have online, they can go online at www.thearchwayinstitute.com, and they can ask for references or referrals or whatnot for help. And so we'll communicate with them, we'll contact them, we'll kind of guide them through that process and see what is available in their area.
Great. John Stuckey, co-founder of the Archway Institute of St. Louis, and an example of living a clean and sober life and paying back, helping others. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.